My name is Caleb Dean.
And I'm Ethan Goodwin.
Today we're going to dive into the brain of adolescents and young adults. We're going to look at depression and anxiety and how physical activity is a great way to help you overcome it. In the year 2021, 12.3 million people seriously thought about suicide. 3.5 million of them made a plan, 1.7 million of them attempted suicide, and 48,183 people succeeded in that. That is one death every 11 minutes. Over 7,000 of these deaths were people aged 10 to 24 years old, and a huge reason for these issues with the mental health of such young people can be drawn to countless factors. But one common reason is the massive increase in independency and stress during your high school and college years.
Although antidepressants are incredibly useful and have been proven to be effective, it is important that psychiatrists, patients, and those who do not have a doctor all look towards life-healthy solutions before relying on medication or during its prescription. An example of a simple but incredibly effective treatment is physical activity. Physical activity is defined as any bodily movement that requires energy expenditure. So this includes an intense cardio exercise, a calm yoga class, and anything in between. The World Health Organization recommends 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. For children, it's 60 minutes.
Before we continue, let's step back and look at the numbers of teens and young adults who are struggling with depression and how they attempt to cope with it. In 2020, the CDC's Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, or BRFSS, conducted a survey where they found that more than 20% of teens aged 18 to 24 have been diagnosed with depression during their lifetime. Along with this, data from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health show that during 2015 to 2019, year-by-year depression increased most rapidly among adolescents aged 12 to 17 years and young adults aged 18 to 25 years.
The natural stresses of school and rising independency can only be lessened so much. What really hurts a kid's mental health is the unhealthy coping practices available to them. Phones and other devices have been what these teens turn to as a way to keep themselves occupied and as a way to socialize. In Jean Twang's book, iGen, she cites national health surveys and other statistics, finding that teens who rely on their phones as preferred social outlet are the most unhappy.
Countless amounts of research have been conducted surrounding children and their time on devices. It's been found that general internet and social media use is directly related to a decline in communication with family members and reduction of the user's social circle. Along with this, several publications suggest that computer use may have negative effects on children's social development. At the time the original studies were conducted, which was in the 2000s, almost all of today's social networks did not exist. With the development of countless social networking sites, screen time among adolescents and young adults has significantly increased. This usage may not send adolescents into a depressive state, but it can most definitely build upon their depression and anxiety and prevent them from seeking help from their family or social circle. Here's where physical activity comes in. Meta-analysis and systematic reviews have shown that physical activity may prevent the onset of depression and may be as effective as antidepressants in treating depression.
I think adolescence, the teenage years, it's such a time where there's so much going on in their brains and trying to figure it all out, trying to quote unquote fit in. I think there's a lot of inherent insecurity. So if you're already kind of questioning who you are and already just trying to figure yourself out, if you're then saddled with depression or anxiety, it makes it maybe a little bit harder to reach out for help.
Do you think that technology and social media has had an effect on the mental health of teens? And do you think it's a positive or negative effect?
I think it can go both ways. Again, I think with social media, there's a lot of that, what we're putting out there in general, right, on all of
Mm.
our little social media sites is look at me, look how great my life is, look how fun how much fun I'm
Yeah,
having, look how awesome my skin looks, whatever. Um, there's not necessarily a lot of sharing of, wow, I'm having a bad day, or
yeah,
ooh, I'm feeling kind of left out. And if you're already feeling like you're not part of the in crowd, or that there's something wrong with you or whatever, when you see everyone else looking all happy, it makes you feel worse. And when I say it's a double-edged sword, we could, and I think to a certain extent, some people have started using it as a way to find support for each other,
yeah,
and recognizing that they're actually not alone, and being able to reach out across geographical barriers to be able to connect with one another in a helpful way. But I think overwhelmingly, unfortunately, it's more about fitting in.
mm,
And if you're sitting in your room by yourself, spending tons of time watching everyone else looking glamorous and beautiful, and you're not feeling that way inside, it can make you feel worse. And so overwhelmingly, I feel like it's having a negative impact as opposed to a positive one. Yeah, so a big part of what we do at Safe Harbor, it's not only about bringing kids and teens together to support each other,
mm,
but it's also to help them to recognize that those feelings that they're feeling, the thing that they're going through, are not abnormal and unusual, and that we want to teach them healthy ways of coping with them so that they don't go down the path of making bad decisions. So a big part of what we do is encouraging kids to share with each other what's working for you, when you're having a super bad day, when it's hard to get out of bed in the morning, when you're overwhelmed with anxiety, in the middle of a test or whatever. What are some things that work? And it can be very different for a lot of people. Psychologists and psychiatrists and licensed social workers will always try to explore different things that can be done first
mm,
before resorting to medicine. Medicine definitely has its place and can
yeah.
often work in conjunction with that stuff. Um, but you always want to try to do things that we can all regulate within ourselves first before turning to something external.
When you engage your body in physical activity, your heart rate is elevated and blood flow increases. Your brain is exposed to more oxygen and nutrients, as well as the release of beneficial protein. Your brain also releases dopamine and endorphins. These are the chemicals in your brain that make you feel happy or not depressed. Because of the massive benefits this variety of activity brings to our physical and mental health, it's so important that the opportunity to stay active is not only given to kids and young adults, but consistently and repeatedly encouraged.